Welcome to the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network. I'm the Gothic Rose, and this is the hot mess of Hollywood. Yes, dear fiends of the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network is a channel where the news meets conspiracy theories. It makes babies in my brain and it comes out my mouth. We explore the darkest stories from the deepest corners of Hollywood and the world. If you like this sort of entertainment, be sure to like, follow, and hit that bell because I am not going to stop. Hello, dear fiends of the den. I am back with the hot mess of Hollywood. I took a break yesterday. It was the 4th of July. It just felt somber and strange to me. But there is always hope that this country will unify and we will find our way back to being Americans again that get along instead of divisive by all of these politics. Let's hope. Now, we do know that politics and Hollywood have crossed since the 1920s, and this weird trial of Diddy's seems to have proven a lot of that. If you checked out the last episode before this, where people think that Diddy was an informant, according to Kanye. So let's see in this episode who gets burned. Not only did Kanye accuse Diddy of allegedly being a Fed, but a lot of people seem to think that because all of these videos did exist that Diddy had, he covered his ass basically and painted himself into a nice gray area where he couldn't get charged for racketeering, where he couldn't get charged for trafficking because he was probably doing that with the A++ listers and no one was going to get caught there. What he forgot about was the Mann Act, where he's now facing up to 20 years in prison. As we know, Diddy's lawyers were working overtime to get him released on bail because he was only charged with the Mann Act, and they wanted him to be able to reside in his Miami mansion, but also fly between Miami, LA, and New York, which makes absolutely no sense. You still have to pay for the crimes that you were charged with. But him being Diddy, he's just thinking, no problem, Mann Act, no big deal, I can walk. It's not that simple. This is where, and I'll be honest, this is where the whole confusion of the trial comes in for me, because the media painted it and the prosecution painted it as he was some kind of crazy, violent man that needed to be put away on all of these charges. Now, he was violent. He was violent with Cassie, the car explosion. He has violent outbursts. We have seen this. So he was denied bail a total of 3 times before trial and again after his conviction. So after his arrest in September of 2024, Diddy's legal team offered a $50 million bond backed by equity in his homes and 24/7 security monitoring. Court said no. These offers were denied 3 separate times until Diddy ultimately withdrew his bail in December of 2024. And prosecutors are arguing that under the Mann Act, he's a flight risk and he poses a danger to the community, so he should not be given bail between now and sentencing. I think he'd be gone. But no, to be honest, I'm not confused. That's more sarcasm. It's the fact that they know that he's dangerous. They know that he has a penchant for violence and witness intimidation, yet he was not found guilty of any of the coercion. It's just very, very odd to me. But again, that's sarcasm. It's not odd to me. We know who was on those tapes. Not exactly, but we know that some higher ups were. And if you listen to the last podcast about the News Nation interview by Ashley Banfield on her show Banfield, and Ariel Mitchell Kidd was the attorney representing one of Diddy's accusers, and she revealed that there was a sale of a pornographic type video involving Diddy and another more high profile individual, and they did a catch and kill. So, as I stated, and probably many of you were expecting that type of trial, exposing all of these men and women who are in this web, kind of like the Epstein list that we're never going to see. I mean, we've seen some of the flight logs, but again, I take that all with a grain of salt because how do we really know what we're seeing is what we're seeing? I look for video and photo evidence of Jeffrey Epstein with certain people, and we've seen him with certain high profile individuals, both in the UK and the US, which I will not mention here. But it seemed like it would have been that kind of takedown, and there's no way any of these politicians or other A+ list celebrities were going to let that happen. Diddy knows everything. So, someone said that they thought maybe Diddy pissed off the feds and they did this whole trial to embarrass him because they knew he wasn't going to be found guilty of RICO or trafficking, which could be because I know way too much about Diddy now that I did not want to know. So we know Diddy is violent. We know Diddy is dangerous. And another friend in my last episode said very wisely they should have just charged him with abuse. And then he could have just made, his plea deals for that. But again, all of these people were paid for these acts. It's like a business transaction. Not that it's a great business transaction, but it is, the whole thing was the strangest trial ever, and it really meant nothing. What a waste of taxpayer dollars, but this is where we are. But with that, I had said the government asked Cassie and Jane Doe to put themselves out there and reveal parts of their lives and private text messages to get a conviction that they knew they were not going to get. And I would not have put myself on the line if I were these two women. I would have kept myself safe. And I would ask any woman out there again that if the government comes to you saying, yeah, we've got, a case against this person, will you step forward and spill your guts and tell all your bad things and make yourself look bad in court so we can get a conviction? I would say, no, leave me out of it. Get your own conviction. My peace is more important. Peace and love to Cassie and Jane Doe. I would be making plans to leave the country and be out long before Diddy is released from prison. So with that, Cassie wrote a letter, and here are just some key points. So through her attorney, Douglas Wigder, he wrote to the U.S. District Judge on July 12th, 2025, in this case, saying Miss Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case, including herself as well as the community. And she argued that Diddy's release could endanger victims who testified, including herself. I agree. He has a history of violence and intimidation and shows a pattern of retaliatory behavior. And under the Bail Reform Act, detention is mandatory post-conviction for the charges he was found guilty of. All true. So the impact of the letter and legal analysis believe that Cassie's letter significantly influenced the judge's decision to deny bail. So Judge Submarinian, if I pronounced that wrong, I apologize, cited Diddy's violent conduct even after knowing he was under investigation, the defense's own admission of his violent behavior during the trial, and a disregard for the rule of law and a propensity for violence. So this is all pretty serious, and these are things that he needed to do time for. So maybe the prosecution didn't get it all wrong. And I think that the jury took this very seriously and charged him with the right crimes, although he did not get charged with the crimes against the women who put themselves out there. But I am glad that he's at least paying the price for some of it. Although I feel like his family, is just gonna, especially his daughters, are really gonna suffer. I really do feel for his daughters. The sons are a little more callous, but his daughters, really, it's just tugging at my heartstrings for them to have had to hear all of those details, because even if you don't want to believe it, it has to sink into your head somewhere that he was found guilty of hurting people and abusing people and doing really depraved things that should have just stayed private. I will say this forever. But there we are with the hot mess of Hollywood. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I am the nerd who loves research, and if you do have any tips for me, please email me at welcometothedenpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy this content and even pettier content on my hot mess of Hollywood, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And thank you for joining me in the den.